Hey, I'm Andrew, and I don't know about you, but I hate every chimp I see. I f***ed that line up already. I hate this. Why make me sing? Hi, I'm Andrew, and I don't know about you, but I hate every ape I see.
From chimpanzee to chimpanzee.
But I love the Planet of the Apes movies. The three reboots give us a chance to see how special effects have developed over the last 50 years of cinema. It's a lot like evolution. It started in the 60s with primitive, sweaty monkey masks, reached the pinnacle of physical effects with the reboot, and today we've evolved beyond actual makeup and use computers and performance capture to make our talking apes. So let's put the theory to the test. We're going to tell you all about the evolution of effects in Planet of the Apes. So let's start with the common ancestor, the original Planet of the Apes.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Back in the 60s, sci-fi movies weren't big budget blockbusters like they are today. They were cheap, low quality films that were good for a quick buck, but not much else. So when the studio saw the $5 million budget for the original Planet of the Apes, they needed some convincing. No one knew whether audiences would take the idea of a talking ape seriously.
See? He keeps pretending he can talk.
Execs were worried that they'd burst into laughter every time one of them spoke. So, they commissioned a screen test. Fox gave the producer $5,000 to film a short scene with Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson as Dr. Zaius. The orangutan makeup was a little rough, but it worked. By the way, have you seen that scene? It looks like a post-apocalyptic Muppets show. The movie was a go, so Fox hired an effects artist named John Chambers to refine the ape makeup. Chambers is a fascinating dude. He got his start making facial prosthetics for soldiers disfigured in World War II. And that experience led him to Hollywood, where he became one of the most influential people in the history of movie makeup. He's the guy that made Mr. Spock's ears. Which means without him, Vulcans would just be like humans 2.0. It doesn't make fucking sense.
They have green blood.
They have green blood, is what I'm being told by our writer. So Spock would effectively have to bleed every episode in order for you to know that he was a fucking alien. There's even a rumor that Chambers created the Sasquatch in this famous Bigfoot film. But Planet of the Apes was his masterpiece. It won him an honorary Oscar.
Please bring Mr. Chambers his award.
But that's not even the coolest award he's ever received. There definitely aren't too many Academy Award winners who also have a medal from the CIA. Chambers designed high-tech disguise kits for their spies and helped with the rescue of captive diplomats in Iran. Remember Argo? John Goodman plays him in the movie. Anyway, Chambers wanted to find the perfect balance between human and simian features. Basically, he didn't want his apes to look like people just walking around with hair glued to their faces, but he didn't want them to seem like animals either. He began sculpting heads that looked more like Neanderthals than apes, then slowly worked backwards down the evolutionary ladder until he found the right look. Once the designs were locked, Chambers got to work on developing the makeup process. They spent almost $350,000 on makeup, the largest amount in history at the time. In those days, movie studios had pretty small makeup departments. They were basically just a few people locked away in a room. That wasn't gonna cut it for apes. Chambers taught his methods to over 80 new makeup artists. Originally, it took them 5 whole hours to apply the makeup, but by the time shooting had wrapped, they honed it down to a cool 3 hours. So at first, they wanted stuntmen and extras to play the apes. I mean, why bother casting an expensive star when they'd just be hidden under makeup, right? But Chambers' makeup was the first to actually let an actor's performance shine through. By using 3 separate appliances, a chin, a muzzle, and a forehead, the apes could talk and emote in a way that let them be real characters and not just movie monsters.
If we didn't keep the appliances moving, they began to look like masks. I got very used to making them move all the time. We were doing all kinds of crazy little things with our face all the time.
The emotions you can see behind Chambers' makeup is a lot like how Weta Digital uses facial capture technology to make Caesar one of the most convincing CGI creations ever. We'll get to that reboot in a little bit. But first, we've got to talk about Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. Do we have to?
Yes, it's Mark Wahlberg.
Let's get this out the way first. The movie's trash. It's the most pointless remake this side of RoboCop, but I can't complain about Rick Baker's awesome makeup effects. Baker was part of the generation of makeup artists who grew up inspired by Chambers' work, and he had a reputation for being the ape guy in Hollywood. By the time Tim Burton hired him for the remake, he had done 4 ape movies, including the 1976 update of King Kong. Baker wasn't happy with how unrealistic Kong looked, and he saw the new apes as a way to atone for it. A second chance, if you will. His apes weren't quite as innovative as the originals, but they looked incredible. They're the same basic techniques, but with decades of refinement and progress. There's a natural evolution of Chambers' work in the 60s. All of the main apes have unique looks, as opposed to the 3 basic designs in the old films. And I'm still blown away by how seamlessly they transformed those huge stars into realistic primates. Except for Helena Bonham Carter. Apes shouldn't have eyebrows, you shouldn't put your girlfriend in every movie, and honestly, she looks just like the boy in Jumanji throughout the 3rd act of the film. Can we get that on the screen, please, just for a second? Baker's apes were much more animalistic than the originals. The old ones walked upright and pretty much acted like humans for the most part. But in Burton's remake, the apes run on all 4s, leaping around treetops and attacking humans with fists and feet of fury. It feels a lot more authentic than the old movies, mostly thanks to a Cirque du Soleil performer named Terry Notary. He set up an ape school on set, where he taught the main actors and over 100 extras how to behave like real primates.
And then the chimps are much more wiry, they're much more...
It worked so well that Notary got the same job in the 2011 reboot. Burton actually considered using CGI to create the apes in his remake, but considering the technology at the time, they might have made the right call going with makeup. Seriously, it was 2001. Look at all the CGI from 2001. It's a great case against not doing CGI in 2001. Think of the remake as the missing link in the evolution from the physical effects to the computer animation of the reboot.
Take your stinking paw off me, you damn 38!
So, the performance capture technology used in Rise, Dawn, and War for Planet of the Apes isn't anything new. Remember all those creepy mocap movies like The Polar Express? It's actually rooted in an old animation process called rotoscoping. Artists would trace over live-action footage to make a cartoon character move realistically. Performance capture isn't all that different. It just uses little dots all over the actor's body to record their movement and transposes them onto a computer-generated character, making for some pretty funny behind-the-scenes featurettes. Like, just look at Benedict Cumberbatch pretend to be Smog. It's an industry standard practice, but Weta Digital is famous for pushing boundaries. They pretty much wrote the book on CGI characters with their work on Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And they made a major technological breakthrough with Planet of the Apes. See, with traditional mocap, you had to film the actors indoors with very specific lighting. That's so the camera can keep track of all the reflective dots on their body. But Weta came up with a way to use infrared sensors to make their technique work outdoors. Shooting on location made a huge difference in the apes' performances. Instead of being hidden away in a studio, the actors were out there in the rain and mud and dirt. They're interacting with their human co-stars on set in real time. And with facial capture, we have the CGI performances with the same nuance and subtlety of real life. Once Weta tweaks things by hand and corrects for the differences in ape and human face structure, the results are phenomenal, especially with a great actor like Andy Serkis. His performance is so immersive that you completely forget about the illusion. Also, did he ever win an Oscar? He wasn't even nominated for an Oscar. The man's a genius. King Kong, Gollum, Caesar. He's gonna be in Black Panther. I mean, what does Andy Serkis have to do to get nominated for a award? I don't get it. He's a genius. Anyway, Caesar's as real as any flesh and blood character. It's honestly hard to believe that there's not a single real ape in any of these movies. Special effects have come a long way since 1968. Today, they can bring giant transforming robots to life, create impossible new worlds, and even reanimate the dead. I'm looking at you, Tarkin. But if you really want to see evolution at work, you don't have to look much further than a talking ape.
I love you, Dr. Zayas!